Look in the camera.
That's what's strange.
It's just fix up the middle at the top.
How about now?
That's better, yeah.
Welcome back to Seekistan, where we're answering the comments and questions you asked in the comments of a video that we asked you to put questions and comments in. So you'd seen the previous ones about the RDL and the core work. Today we're doing two more. The first one is from Scat. Oh, also, we just need to talk about something, and apparently I made a faux pas about the furries and anime thing yesterday.
Oh, did you?
They're not the same thing, apparently.
They're not.
Apparently, no. I don't know what makes...
I don't know what any of it is.
What makes...
Can we please...
An anime... What makes a cartoon? I bet you... What do you think it makes cartoon and anime? Someone's asked this before. An anime is an abbreviation of animation, refers to a semi-realistic form of animation used in movies, series, and series, etc. While a cartoon refers to a non-realistic form of visual art that happens to be animated and entails humour and satire. So...
Lads,
anime can't be funny.
Can we...
Can't be funny in anime.
It can't be.
Doesn't seem like it. Everyone's got huge tits in anime as well. Scott says, do you like to use plyo stuff for beginner weightlifters? And if so, what exercises? Cheers again. Nope.
No. One of the main issues with beginners is that they're beginners and they've had no experience with the lifts. So it would be like asking someone to learn how to kick a soccer ball but getting them to kick a tennis ball first, you know. Although there might be merit in learning how to kick a smaller target, or there might be merit in kicking a lighter ball, you really just need to get practice with the lift first. And this is why most of the time beginners programming will look very, very basic. They have a lot of practice with the snatch, a lot of practice with the clean and jerk. Then they'll obviously do their fundamentals like squatting, pulling, and their accessories. But no, like, there's something called associative cueing, right? Or cueing, basically where you're looking for previous experience that, okay, if someone's not extending vertically enough at the top of a snatch or at the top of a clean, you might tell them to, if they had been a soccer player previously, you might tell them to jump up as if they're heading the ball to make sure they stay vertical and to make sure they're extending fully at the very, very top, right? That kind of association can be valuable, and that's why you get people who are skilled learners and non-skilled learners. And one of the biggest prerequisites of being a skilled learner is having a high level of physical literacy, right? So having done a lot of sports before, doing sports that are very, very kind of physically demanding. So there's certain sports which will obviously train your proprioceptive system a lot better. It's why people who do gymnastics tend to be very, very good at picking up other sports afterwards. But for beginners, they need a lot of practice with the specific movements of the snatch and the clean and jerk. And that's why, although it might be handy to get them to do plyos so they'll vertically extend at the top, it's better just to get them to do snatch where they vertically extend correctly instead.
So you should probably as well look at why you should be doing plyometrics at all as a weightlifter. And so obviously it is for the fastest expression of your strength. So fast twitch muscle fibers. Weightlifting is all about speed and being as fast as possible. So of course plyometric training would certainly help with this. But as a beginner athlete, you kind of have two aspects. One, you shouldn't really be doing plyometrics until you're strong enough, adequately strong enough. So as we've mentioned numerous times before, the UK SCA's recommendation for body weight to back squat strength is a double body weight back squat before you do plyometric training. So that's double body weight below parallel. And a lot of beginner weightlifters don't actually have that. They'll certainly get there reasonably fast, but a lot of them actually won't have that double body weight back squat. And like Fitz said, when you're trying to do a variety of other things, you have training, you've snatch, clean, jerk, you've more squatting than they're probably used to, different kind of squatting than they're used to, you have more deadlifts. All of this stuff adds up, and their ability to actually productively do plyometric training would actually be quite low. And as we always mention, you need to be doing plyometric training when you're fresh, and you need to be doing it when you're sharp. So should you really take time away from the snatch and the clean and jerk to do intense plyometric training? And the answer is definitely not for now. At a later stage, you can certainly consider adding in plyometrics. But one of the other aspects as well is all of this loading puts a lot of pressure on our joints. And the reason the UK SCA recommends you have that double bodyweight back squat is to protect your tendons and ligaments. Tendon and ligaments are quite resilient, but it takes a period of time for them to build up the resilience. And this comes through strength training, not really through plyometric training. So you want to build that base of strength first as a beginner. And as they have a huge amount of training load, huge amount of snatch and clean and jerk, we're putting a lot of pressure, new stimulus on tendons and ligaments and joints. We don't want to add something explosive and dynamic with high forces through their tendon and ligaments already. So we want to leave those to the side for the period of time. Obviously, huge part of weightlifting is why other sports use it, is because of the speed strength aspect. So weightlifters themselves get a lot of the speed strength and kind of semi-plyometric or fast twitch training from the lifts themselves. So there's no real reason to overload that stimulus with extra plyometric training, as it's just completely pointless. You know, beginners respond quite well to anything, so the smallest amount of stimulus we need to improve things is all we'll ever need to do. For example, if you look at the Russians' recommendation, Mediev's, for plyometric training, if we take the most extreme form of plyometric training, that would be depth jumps. Depth jumps are incredibly useful at increasing an athlete's ability to contract fast, but they are very, very fatiguing. Central nervous fatigue is very, very high with them. Tendons and joints impact is very, very high with them. So a lot of people, once they're advanced, will do a depth jump from 70 centimeters or higher than that, depending on what stage of training in. Now, most people can't do a depth jump from a 20 centimeter plate. Literally cannot do a depth jump correctly. It could take 2 to 3 months to do it correctly, if at all. They might never be able to do it. So the loading of these depth jumps, for example, even for these advanced masters level athletes, as in masters of sport, not older athletes, these masters of athletes are given 2 6-week periods a year to use depth jumps, and then never use it for the rest of that year because it's such a fatiguing exercise. So you just need to understand that how weighty plyometrics can be, and they're not really needed for that beginner weightlifter for these mentioned reasons.
The last thing I would say is that for beginner weightlifters, particularly people who are starting at a small bit later, so starting maybe in their mid to late 20s, early 30s, whatever,
which is 20 years later than everyone else starts.
Yeah, you're almost never limited by strength or power. Like that's very, very low on the list of priorities of things you need to be better at. You probably need better coordination, certainly need better skill at the lift. All of these things are more important than need to be trained more. So it's how, in the same way where usually you get somebody and they'll be weightlifting for probably 2 years before it kind of catches up with their squat, where now their front squat is too weak for their clean and jerk or something along those lines. That would be one of the main things for beginners, is that like you don't need to be more explosive right now. It would be great if you were, but you really just need to be better at weightlifting right now, and then you can worry about the other developmental stuff later on.
Okay, so that was the first question, and the second question we're going to do for this video is from Midas O. He's saying, I have a question. You always say that you should not train explosive movements when you're tired. Does that still apply to parkour? As a whole, the sport is all about explosiveness, and we can't just stop training after 10 minutes because of explosiveness breakdown. Yes.
Yeah.
So unfortunately it does.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing, but there's a small bit of nuance here, right? So parkour is unbelievably explosive. It's obviously plyometric in the fact that a lot of the time you're using your stretch shortening cycle, so you're jumping and rebounding off a wall, or you're whatever, scaling something using that stress shortening cycle of a muscle tendon unit. But what you need to look at here is your capacity as an athlete to do a session, right? So what you'll find is you're probably applying the mindset of, okay, once I do 3 attempts at this gap jump, or once I do 3 attempts at this scaling, that I start to slow down and I start to become more tired. You can certainly build up capacity over the course of a number of years of training, where with 3 minutes rest, 5 minutes rest, 7 minutes rest in between each of your attempts, you're getting back to a level of explosiveness, or you're getting back to a level of integrity within that muscle tendon unit where you can have a valid attempt again. A lot of the time what you're doing in parkour isn't, so it obviously is limited by the actual power you can produce and the explosiveness you have during the jump, but a lot of it is the fine kind of coordination and skill of that timing of possibly jumping to a wall and then turning and catching a ledge next to you. Although you will be limited with your explosiveness, your speed, your power in general during those jumps, once you start getting further and further into the sessions, assuming your rest period in between jumps is sufficient, you should certainly still be able to produce that speed and that power necessary where you can have a skill element to the practice. So this is why you can see parkour practitioners, or would they parkour athletes, players, whatever. That's why you can see them doing an hour and a half of a kind of parkour session. They're taking breaks in between. They're still getting value from the session because the break is sufficient where that kind of ATP and glycogen is recovered. their muscle is getting back to it. It mightn't be 100%, but it's getting back to being close enough. And then you're getting valuable practice because you're still practicing a skill, although that skill might not be 100%. What I would say is you need to imagine this as if you're doing 10 gap jumps in a row, and now you no longer have the speed, power, explosiveness to get over that gap, and now you can't actually make the gap. So you're no longer getting valuable practice in, you're no longer achieving any part of that skill. That's the kind of fatigue we're talking about, you know. Like, things need to be sharp, you need to be fast enough to carry out a movement, but there's definitely value in carrying out a movement and practicing the skill itself. It's not 100% about physical exertion. There's very much a coordination and skill element to it.
Thanks for watching.